Okay, welcome to my podcast. My name is Jorge Collazo, and with us today I have,
Mariela Hernandez.
okay, Ms. Mariela Hernandez. I have a few questions for you about e-learning. The first one is, what's your experience with e-learning?
Well, like many teachers pre-pandemic, I dabbled in e-learning. I've started off as a science teacher, so we would use things like GeoGebra, which I know sounds more math, but math is very integrated into science, Desmos, and PhET simulations, as well as different online quizzes and study material like quizzes and Kahoot. And then during COVID, like many teachers, I delved into e-learning, giving class online, trying to be equitable in providing material and lessons pre-recorded on our Google Classroom, putting slides, using Pear Decks, actually holding classes, usually practicing SEL during the first COVID 2020, because not everyone was able or willing to log on when we first went remote, especially when people had several different siblings who would also need to be logging on. So as much as I would help them with the material that was already posted, I made sure I checked in with them, and we would do Socratic seminars where we were sharing and, being able to fill that connection that was lost. Then when the next year came, we were still online teaching at my school up until April, and I was teaching both math and science. And we were using Microsoft Teams to hold meetings, to record. Wednesday was allowed to be asynchronous. However, I saw there was a giant difference in grades on the days that I was synchronous versus asynchronous. On asynchronous days, my students did not log on, but when simply me being on and going through the lesson with them, even if I was recorded, they would not do it pre-recorded, but they would do it if I was there. So I stayed synchronous. I had gotten to a really cool place before we went into the hybrid model, where on Wednesday I would give a small lecture, and then I'm calling each student to hold small little meet and greets. Like, my screen is frozen here, but I'm talking with you here, and I'm checking in, and I'm checking what you need help with, just because I did not want to give so many Fs, but I also couldn't justify not if they were doing nothing. And it was working really well at improving the grades. Fortunately, we then switched to a hybrid model where I was both teaching online while having students in the classroom. And so that did away with those because we didn't have privacy anymore. But that was a fun thing to maneuver over.
And how long did you guys do that for? That sounds interesting.
We did that for the whole year up until April, till the end of the year. And then the next school year, we started mostly in person, but there was a stipulation that if students were out with COVID, we did have to then have the hybrid. And apparently a lot of classes didn't do it, and the district's like, we lost a lot of money paying you guys extra to do that. But I had every week, I had to put my slides up, I had to do asynchronous tests, so I did it very often where I was doing the hybrid model still.
And then you were talking about like challenges too, like getting those kids who didn't log in. Like, what other challenges besides that did you have, like behind the scenes? Like, did you have like anything like go majorly wrong or anything?
There's so much going
besides the kids not logging in. Like, what else did you have? Like anything, like another challenge that you think like a big one?
Well, I was a high school teacher, so I had over 150 students who I was responsible for their attendance, and even if they log in for a minute, it counts. But I also have to be giving class while calling every student, and then I have to go through the logs and be like, okay, is that from my 2 calls to you, or is that because you logged on? Do you get attendance credit? So that was really hard. And then for the grades and emailing parents because emailing or calling parents because your student is not logging on, and we don't want you to be blindsided when progress reports come out. Wanting to be understanding and give them the chance to retake quizzes, retake tests, and turn in late assignments meant that grades were so much fun to do when progress reports and report cards were due. That led to those challenges. There was a time or two when, I have dogs and I'm recording a lesson and they could hear me in the background. They could hear my dogs barking in the background. So I'd have to redo the recording. Fortunately, if it happened live in class, it happened. I caught COVID in that December of 2021. And I had a long COVID where I was coughing until April. And so unfortunately, I'm giving class and I'm, I'm sure that interrupted their learning a little bit.
Okay. And so, yeah, that sounds like it's a lot of work for you on your end. So with that said, like, what do you think is maybe, like, would you do it again, or like, would you do it differently, like, without Zoom, would you do it with Zoom, or was there anything else that you learned since then, like any other websites or anything that's since then, like, since that happened?
So per my district, we did have to be doing it on Teams.
Oh,
because
Teams.
we had Microsoft. We were a Microsoft school. And the cool thing about Teams is you could record your lesson.
Oh.
And I would do that, especially after I taught it like the third time and I was versed.
Mm-hmm.
And a good thing, I thought was a good thing
Mm-hmm.
that I utilized was I would call, especially during math, I would call on every student throughout class just to give them like a chance to respond like you would in a normal classroom. And I did allow them that they just had to raise their hand to show me they're there. There was no actual repercussions, but the students, that felt, it really made them feel like, oh, teacher's here and I'm doing class and I'm doing math with her. In science, where they were a little more checked out, I would make sure I did like one more just silly question and then open up the classroom to talk for like 5-10 minutes.
For like entertainment, like that's getting them in
just to make sure they're here. Like,
Yeah.
I had kids
Engaged.
talking about how they like to eat bread, let it get mushy in their mouth, and then drink Coca-Cola or put like an egg in orange juice. That was a fun discussion. I'm sure
Science.
someone's parent was there once because they're like, oh, guys, let's get back on topic.
Science,
But,
baby. Okay.
I was like, it's fine. It's making sure you guys are getting some of that social aspect that you aren't getting right now, and you're coming to class because you're going to have a silly discussion.
Oh boy, that sounds tough. With everything you've said, everything you've done, and what you did, I think you did it like great. I think with everything, and then I guess for anyone listening out there, like, what feedback would you give them? Like, if they were, if you had to teach again, I guess for if you had to teach online again, what tips would you give someone who's just getting started? Or maybe like a first year teacher, what tips would you give them, like, just to kind of get them started?
Are you talking about we go back?
Well, not necessarily that, I know. That's why I didn't say.
Or are you starting an online course?
Yeah, just maybe like starting an online course. Like, what would you give them as
I
feedback?
think if you're starting an online course, it's good to not overwhelm the students with too much work at once. I think it's good to have those check-ins because literally I started doing those check-ins right before they announced that we were going back. So I started them at the end of February. And in March, I got so many more assignments turned in. Like, the kids knew I was going to go in. They knew they were going to get a call.
A phone call home?
No, not a phone call home. I call them on Teams. They're in my class. And I was like, oh, hey, I just
Okay.
noticed you need this assignment. Let's go through it. I want to go over the directions with you. I want to see, do you have a question about this? Great. So you have 5 assignments. I don't want to overwhelm you and have you do 5. How about we practice, make sure we do these 2 from the next time I call you. And that really helped them turn in extra.
So just checking up with them, making sure that they're okay. Any other ones, or do you think that's it?
I think being very clear in what's expected, and if you're doing synchronous, make them type in the bubble, make them discuss, make them go to the breakout rooms. If you're doing asynchronous, have those discussions due earlier in the week. So, like, let them know Tuesday the first discussion post is done. That way everyone can reply to you by Thursday, because if you're not very explicit about that, you have everyone turning them in on Thursday or Sunday, and then no one can respond, and everyone's just waiting for that response. And you get a lot of learning out of discussions. Also, post in the discussion. Teachers usually just grade it. Don't. Be a part of the conversation. I'm not saying, I know banking system education, you're not just trying to deposit everything into them, but elicit, ask, have it, you have to respond to me once a month. So they're looking for your response to them. So maybe it's a lot for you to respond to every student, but if you respond to 5 a week and they have to respond to you as part of a grade, you're eliciting those questions and helping them grow in their learning.
That's really good feedback. Like that's all like a lot of the stuff that we're learning right now, like how to get the students engaged. Like when right now we're building a course, you got to get that engagement, like you said, discussing, and then the teacher also giving feedback and being a part of that like community, building a community. So like it's crazy that you're talking about it right now, but it's like stuff that you already did and it's stuff that I'm learning about right now. So I think it sounds like you did a wonderful job during that time, and yeah, I think you rocked it. And I think everyone there is gonna appreciate all the feedback and your experience, and then I'm definitely gonna take some of that stuff back and use it in my own practice as a teacher. But I think that's the end of today's podcast. I think we did a good job, and so Mariela Hernandez and Jorge Collazo signing off, and this is the end.